If you're in the market for a brand new entry-level subcompact SUV, there's a pretty good chance you've probably heard of the Subaru Crosstrek. It has been one of the most popular models in its segment for years, and Subaru sold nearly 200,000 units in the US in all of 2025. However, what if you wouldn't be caught dead driving a Subaru? And this is where both Toyota and Mazda want a piece of that sales pie with their versions, because as you can see on my right here, we have the 2026 Toyota Corolla Cross Hybrid, and on my left, we have the 2026 Mazda CX-30 Turbo. And while both of these vehicles lack the kind of go-anywhere capability and lifestyle that the Subaru portrays, they also have their own individual strengths, because the Mazda here is the most powerful vehicle in its class, offering up to 250 horsepower, and the Corolla Cross offers nearly 200 horsepower and the best fuel efficiency you're going to find with up to 42 mpg combined. So the big question I want to answer is, if you guys have roughly $35,000 to spend on a new entry-level crossover SUV, which one of these two vehicles is actually the better buy? Stay tuned to find out. Now, before we start talking about the unique styling that both the Mazda and the Toyota Corolla Cross deliver, I want to first start by talking about what's going on underneath the hood, because the two cars couldn't be more different here. And I also want to point out that the two models that we're showing you have the top engines. In the Toyota's case, it's a hybrid, and in the Mazda's case, it's a turbocharged engine. Now, I want to start off with the Mazda CX-30, because this is the model that's been out since 2020. It's been around for around 6 years now, and it's probably due for a full redesign, but this powertrain that the Mazda offers certainly has the guts to compare not just with the mainstream subcompact SUVs, but more along the lines of luxury players, because this is Mazda's corporate 2.5-liter gasoline direct injection turbocharged four-cylinder. It's a big turbocharged four-cylinder, and if you feed it premium gas, it'll deliver up to 250 horsepower and 320 pound-feet of torque. If you guys feed it regular fuel, it drops the horsepower to a still pretty impressive 227 and 310 pound-feet of torque. It all goes out through a 6-speed automatic transmission, and Mazda's iActive all-wheel drive system is going to be standard. There is no front drive variant of the CX-30, at least here in America. The base engine is basically this motor minus the turbo, making 186 horsepower and 186 foot-pounds of torque. Like I said earlier, 6-speed automatic, and fuel economy is rated at 22 in the city, 30 on the highway. This has a 12.7 gallon fuel tank, so you'd be lucky to do around 300 miles of range on a full tank. Now, the 0 to 60 performance is impressive. We'll show you guys what it does out on the road later on in the video, but we clocked 6.09 seconds with a top speed of around 127 miles an hour. Sadly, the CX-30 is not rated to tow, not recommended to tow by Mazda, and as this car sits, it weighs in at around 3,500 pounds. So it's heavy, but not quite as heavy as some of its other competitors like the Subaru or the Ford Bronco Sport. Now, in contrast, the Corolla Cross's engine bay is definitely not as pretty, and Toyota offers a choice between two 2-liter 4-cylinder engines versus the Mazda's 2.5. This is, again, the hybridized version, so it combines a 2-liter Atkinson cycle direct and port injection 4-cylinder that makes like 150 horsepower on its own. It has 3 electric motors assisting the engine, however. So there's 2 in the front, 1 at the rear, giving it a separate e-axle with electronic all-wheel drive. Around a 1.5 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery pack is what supplies the power. And this vehicle delivers 196 combined outputs. So it's around 54 less horsepower or 56 less horsepower versus the Mazda, of course. But at the same time, we don't have a torque figure. That's because Toyota doesn't quote the electric motor torque figures and the gas engine torque figures combined. Now, it all goes out through a eCVT, an electronic continuously variable transmission, along with their electronic all-wheel drive system. So this vehicle doesn't have a mechanical linkage from the engine going to the rear drive shaft like the Mazda does, for example. Now, the upgrade, of course, with this, the upside, is the big increase in fuel efficiency. This powertrain is rated to achieve 46 in the city and 39 on the highway, about 42 combined. That's nearly 20 more mpg versus what you get in that CX-30 over there. 0 to 60 time, Toyota doesn't quote that, but we got 6.9 seconds. So it's only about a second slower than the Mazda, but you get nearly twice the fuel efficiency. So that's a big trade-off that you have to make for not that much sacrifice in terms of speed. Now, the top speed of this vehicle should be around 120 miles an hour, and the Corolla Cross is rated to tow up to 1,500 pounds. And surprisingly, even though this has a battery pack and 3 electric motors, the Corolla Cross is the lighter vehicle compared to the Mazda at around 3,400 pounds. Now, closing the hood, I also want to point out that the Corolla Cross has been running this whole time, but because it's a full hybrid, you don't hear the engine running, while the Mazda, I actually had to shut the engine off to kind of prevent all the sound from coming through and ruining the video. But as you can see, in terms of the design, seeing these two vehicles side by side is certainly an interesting take, because obviously Mazda and Toyota have their own interpretation of what a vehicle in this class should look like. Let's start with the Mazda, because this car has been around since 2020. It is due for a redesign. This particular model that I'm showing you is one of 8 different trims. That's right, Mazda offers 8 different trims. It's the new Air edition, which is kind of sitting at the higher end of the trim line structure. Mazda offers the Air in basically the non-turbo and this turbo model. This is the more expensive model, obviously around $5 grand more versus the regular non-turbo. You can see this color is called Aero Gray. It certainly looks good with all the unique black accents that you get with the turbo engine and this particular trim. The Mazda signature wing grille, as you can see, has a unique diamond or unique texture to it. And you can see the Mazda logo there is also blacked out. That also houses the radar sensor for the adaptive cruise control. You also find features like a front camera system, a full 360 camera, which you don't typically find in this segment. And it also has integrated parking sensors. The turn signals are LEDs located at the lower portion of the front bumper. And then of course the Mazda also has lots of cladding. The one area where I don't particularly love is this little piece here that kind of protrudes and sticks out further than the headlight. I think that's a piece where Mazda should have updated in terms of the design of this vehicle. But in general, with the Aero Gray, this car's styling I think has aged okay. But at the same time, next to the Corolla Cross, you can really see that the Mazda is more like a lifted hatchback as opposed to a traditional SUV. Now the Corolla Cross is painted in this color called Cavalry Blue with the black two-tone roof. You can't get a two-tone color on the Mazda. And Toyota gave the Corolla Cross a pretty significant refresh for 2026. You can see the headlights are also full LED, which include an LED turn signal, LED low and high beams, LED daytime running lights, and then down here, the Corolla Cross offers LED fog lights, which you can't get on the Mazda. It does have its own fair share of black plastic cladding. The Toyota logo here is also kind of blacked out a little bit. That houses the radar sensor for the Toyota Safety Sense 3.0. You have some well-integrated parking sensors, but the Corolla Cross does not offer a front 360 camera system like the Mazda offers. But in general, I do find that the look of the front fascias for both of these vehicles have their strengths and weaknesses. I guess if I had to choose one or the other, I probably would pick the Mazda, although I still don't love the Mazda's look. I think the Corolla just looks a little bit kind of more like dorky versus the Mazda looks a little bit more sleek and sophisticated versus the Corolla Cross. Now moving around the side profile of these vehicles, you can see they are small cars, but if you look at the dimensions, the Mazda is actually the smaller car at 173 inches long compared to the 175.6 inch long overall length of the Corolla Cross. So the Corolla is around 2 inches longer. The wheelbases on both of these models are right around the same at 104. The Corolla, however, is a little bit taller and a little bit wider. So that's going to give it a little bit more interior space, which is important for people looking in this particular class. You can see the Corolla has these 18-inch alloy wheels that are exclusive to this XSE hybrid grade, riding on a 225 by 55 R18 Goodyear Assurance tires. You have around 8 inches of ground clearance. And I also think that the cladding around the Corolla Cross is pretty tasteful. It pairs nicely with the black roof and the black painted side mirrors. You get a standard size sunroof and low profile roof rails. No power folding mirrors, of course, but the Corolla Cross does have a fully independent suspension setup, whereas the Mazda has a semi-independent torsion beam at the rear, so that does compromise the ride quality. The Mazda, as you can see, has a lot more cladding along the side of the vehicle compared to the Corolla Cross. I actually think the Mazda has overdone it with the cladding. I really want to see them offer this car with a full paint finish. These are the exclusive wheels on the Air Edition. They're kind of like a gloss black painted 18-inch alloy wheel. With the Mazda, surprisingly have skinnier tires, 215 by 55 R18 Bridgestone Turenza all seasons. You have 11.6-inch rotors at the front, 11.9 at the rear. Slightly bigger brakes than the Corolla Cross, and Mazda says you have around 8 inches of ground clearance for this vehicle, which Toyota also claims the same for the Corolla Cross, so kind of keep that in mind. The black painted side mirrors look good with the Aero Gray paint, and as you can see, there's also a standard sunroof with this vehicle. The Mazda also has kind of more of a sloping rear roofline that does create a sleeker design, but also impedes on the interior space, which I'll show you guys in a moment. The Corolla, on the other hand, has a more frumpy design, but also a more traditional look. It's definitely a less sleek and sophisticated car, but at the same time, I think this car looks good from the back. I especially love some of the updates that Toyota has made this year with the full LED taillights, which kind of have like a blackened look to them. I also like the blacked out badges, lots of badges here on the back of the Corolla Cross. and there's also that Beyond Zero hybrid badge there that lets everybody know you have a hybrid vehicle. The rear bumper, as you can see, has some unpainted and gloss black finishes, and there's also a single exhaust that's kind of poking and hiding underneath there. The rear wiper, as you can see, sits at the bottom of the glass, and you also have, of course, a subtle spoiler. Now, in contrast, the Mazda has a much more sleeker design. I'm surprised the spoiler on the roof isn't larger, as you can see, but the taillights kind of have the same silhouette as the front of the vehicle. I also appreciate the blacked out badges that you get with this trim, the big turbo badge there, which kind of speaks to my heart as an enthusiast. And then as you can see, the rear bumper has lots of black plastic cladding. But what I love about the Mazda is the fact that it has a dual outlet chrome exhaust tip. The turbo also has bigger exhaust pipes, which again finishes off the sleeker and sophisticated, sportier look that Mazda is giving off with this car. Now, in terms of the cargo area, both vehicles on the top trims like this actually come with a power liftgate. The Mazda's power liftgate, as you can see, is a nice feature that's included on the top 3 trims. And with the cargo area open, you have around 20 cubic feet of storage space, which is about the same as what you get in the Mazda 3. It's actually pretty small for this, even for this class. You can see there is a temporary spare underneath there with all the tools you'd need. If you fold down that back seat, Mazda says it expands the cargo to around 45 cubic feet of storage space, which is again pretty small. I mean, you're gonna get a similar amount of cargo space in the 3 or in a Honda Civic hatchback, and it's lacking the space that a lot of its rivals have by about 10 to even 20 cubic feet of space. Now, in contrast, the Corolla Cross does offer a power liftgate on this top trim. It's part of like a convenience package for an extra $1,200, and it's a nice feature to have. And as you can see, with the hybrid model, you do sacrifice some cargo capacity compared to the gas-only version. This model offers around 24 cubic feet of storage space, so around 4 more versus the Mazda. The Toyota, when you lift this up, as you can see, there is no spare on the Toyota. That's because there's just a flat kit and an air compressor. The rear battery, or the battery, basically takes up the space underneath here. If you do fold down this back seat, however, the Corolla Cross expands its cargo capacity to around 62 cubic feet of space, which is plentiful. It's actually among the highest in the segment, and it offers even more space versus this car's Bogey, which is the Subaru Crosstrek, at around 54 cubic feet of space. So obviously, if you need more cargo space, you're going to be looking at the Toyota. Now, moving on to the interior of both of these subcompact SUVs, I'm going to first start with the Mazda, because Mazda typically sets the bar pretty high, especially if you guys are looking for a cabin that feels more like a luxury car. As you can see, this Air Edition has an exclusive interior color and upholstery. I actually love the way it looks. This is a white leatherette material with a synthetic suede insert that's also gray. This is an exclusive color to the Air Edition. It's the only interior color you can get with this particular trim, and it pairs very nicely with the Aero Gray, which is an extra $595. The seats themselves also have some pretty plush padding to them. The driver's seat adjusts in 8 different ways, and you also get a 2-person memory function with 3-level heat and a heated steering wheel. If you're looking for ventilated seats, however, neither Mazda nor Toyota offers it. You'd have to go to one of the Korean twins to get the ventilated seats. As you can see, the door panel has a soft touch injection molded plastic with some contrast faux stitching, some silver painted plastics here, soft padded area here, and then the window controls are one touch for all 4 up and down, which is very unexpected in this class. And this trim also comes with the 12-speaker Bose stereo, which definitely is one of the better sounding systems in the segment. And if you're an audiophile, you're going to really appreciate that. Now, stepping inside, the Mazda definitely feels more like a taller hatchback when you get in, even though it has 8 inches of ground clearance. When I shut the door has a nice solid sounding thunk, which adds to that impression of quality. Now, here's the key fob for the vehicle. If you guys go for any of the trims above the base, you'll get Mazda's intelligent access key. There's no remote start from the fob, but you can access the Mazda Connect app if you're an owner to access the remote start. Put your foot on the brake. As you can hear, the engine fires up with a traditional starter noise. The Mazda chime, of course, makes its presence known. And the engine itself, I have to say, on the turbo engine, Mazda actually adds a synthesizer here that makes the engine sound a little bit better from the speakers. It's a nice sounding engine for what it is, and it's definitely better in sound versus the Corolla Cross. And I'm going to briefly go over the interior of this vehicle. As you can see, it definitely looks like it could belong in a luxury car, from the way the steering wheel looks to the contrast stitch. The wheel also offers a manual tilt telescoping arrangement. It's easy to get a comfortable driving position. However, the Mazda's tech is definitely starting to look dated, because as you can see, the driver faces a display that's a mixture of analog and digital, with a 7-inch digital screen in the center for the speedometer. The head-up display is exclusive to the upper trims. I love this Very nice synthetic suede on the dash, which is very plush. There's a soft touch injection molded plastic with cross stitching there. That's a faux stitch design. You have a 10.25-inch display here, which is not a touchscreen for the Mazda native system, but it is a touchscreen if you use the wireless CarPlay Android Auto. It's controlled via this dial here, which has an okay feel to it. As you can see, there's also traditional hard buttons here for the dual zone climate. You have 3-level heated seats and a heated steering wheel. I don't like how ergonomically you can't see the illumination of this heated steering wheel button when you're kind of sitting in the driver's seat. There's a wireless phone charging pad here that's a little on the small side, decent sized cup holders, but if you put a tall drink here, it'll get blocked by the climate controls that are kind of in the way. When I put the vehicle into reverse, you can see there's your full 360 camera with trajectory and distance markers. Decent quality resolution. Again, one of the few vehicles that offers a full 360 camera. Love the traditional shifter. It's got a sport mode that's either on or off via that little toggle. And you can see instead of piano black, Mazda fought that urge. They only put a little bit here. You have some leather padding here. Nice padded center console. And if I slide this back, you can see there's 2 USB-C charging ports. Open that up. It's a pretty deep storage well there, which is very usable. And these seats are also comfortable and supportive. The passenger side seat here is completely a 4-way manual. There's traditional air vents, and you can see the glove box goes into the dash. It's damped but not lined with felt. And overall visibility definitely feels like it's a little bit compromised here because of the sleeker styling. You have an auto dimming rearview mirror. Sunroof here, obviously, that has the manual shade that also opens up. Kind of a cheaper cardboard material there for the headliner. And then the horn actually sounds pretty decent considering the fact that this is a small car. But let's go ahead and show you guys the back seat really quick because I want to show you guys what Mazda offers here. And what they claim here is around 36 inches of legroom, which sounds pretty good on paper. However, the horn, the opening, as you can see, is pretty small. You do have hard touch plastic materials back here along with some silver painted plastic elements. These seats also do fold down, but they do not recline. And then once I get back here, as you can see, the space does feel pretty tight. At 5'7", this is basically my driving position. There's rear seat air vents back here, but no USB-C charging ports. I can get comfortable-ish back here, but there's not much knee space. Big hump here for the middle passenger, and you do have an armrest here that folds down and gives you 2 cup holders. The headroom space, I have maybe a solid 2 inches of additional clearance. So there is a carve out here from the sunroof, but it's definitely on the tight side, even though this car on paper does offer around 36 inches of legroom, which is more versus what Toyota offers on the Corolla Cross. But let's go ahead and hop into the Corolla Cross really quick, and I can show you guys the interior of this vehicle very briefly. As you can see, the Corolla only comes with a black interior if you guys want the hybrid. Now they do offer a nice brown interior on the XLE gas-only version called Portobello, but this is kind of like a mixed media material where you have the Softex leatherette, which is a synthetic leather with this kind of interesting insert here with the contrast blue stitching. It looks good with the Cavalry blue exterior. And then in terms of the dash or door panel materials on the front, it's a soft touch injection molded plastic, a faux stitching here, nice padded over area over here. And I'm also surprised to see that the Corolla has one touch up down for all 4 windows, which is again a feature that I don't see in some more expensive cars. Hard touch plastic down here, a little bit bigger storage areas in the doors, and this car comes with an optional 9-speaker JBL sound, which sounds better than the base system, but not quite as good as the Mazda is. It just doesn't have as much punch. Now getting inside, the Corolla Cross definitely feels a little higher than the Mazda, and it also has bigger doors, so I don't have to duck my head to get in. What I don't like, however, is this dash design. It kind of protrudes out and eats into my interior space as I shut the door. The door definitely has a more tinny sound, so the Mazda definitely has a more solid door slam thunk when I close the door. Now, here's the key fob for the Corolla Cross. As you can see, most models will come with their intelligent access key. It's actually, for me, a nicer feeling key than the Mazda's, and this car also comes with remote start from the key fob itself. If you push the lock button and hold it on the 3rd press, it'll actually activate the remote start. Mazda doesn't offer that. They only offer it through the Mazda Connect app. Now, starting the vehicle up, as you can see, because this is a hybrid, there is no traditional starter noise. Instead, it just kind of whirs to life, and it says ready and EV in the instrument panel. And as you can also see, the Corolla Cross surprisingly has much better tech than the Mazda. As you can see, the driver has a fully digital 12.3-inch cluster. You do only get that on the top XLE and XSE trim. The Corolla also shockingly has paddle shifters here for an eCVT. The Mazda didn't even have paddles, which I think you can get on the Premium Plus trim, 1 notch above the one that I'm showing you. As you can see as well, the steering wheel offers a manual tilt telescoping arrangement, which offers a good amount of adjustability and range. No head-up display on this model, and as you can see as well, hard touch plastic materials on the upper portion. It is padded and softer down here, but the Corolla also has a bigger display, and it looks bigger, and it's also much closer where I can easily use it as a touchscreen because there's no controller knob like in the Mazda. This is 10.25 inches. It includes wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as well. And in general, Toyota's software is just much better versus Mazda's. Even though this is not even their newest software system, I think it's just a million times better than the Mazda. Mazda has a new infotainment system that they're working on, but this is, again, 2.5 inches bigger versus what the Corolla Cross comes standard with in terms of screen real estate. If I put the vehicle into reverse, there's your backup camera, which includes trajectory, distance markers, parking sensors front and rear, but sadly no 360 camera. Toyota doesn't offer that on the Corolla Cross. The climate control, as you can see, dual zone auto climate control on this particular trim. You have 2-level heated seats, heated steering wheel, and the center console area here has been redesigned to where you have a wider center console now with a wireless phone charging pad, which is a better wireless phone charging pad than the Mazda. The drive mode selector, Toyota offers a total of 3, Eco, Normal, and Sport, and an actual EV mode. The shifter here, I very much prefer how it's a traditional shifter as opposed to those electronic shifters. There's even a sport mode in the transmission itself right there. A USB-C charging port here, and you can see Toyota also fought the urge to put lots of piano black plastic. You can see there's a decent sized cup holder here, which are more ergonomically usable compared to the Mazda because you can put taller drinks here and they won't get in the way. You can hear the engine just came on because the battery pack, I guess, was getting low. You can't really rev up the Corolla Cross's engine. It doesn't really let you. The center console area you can see is softly padded, but it's a much smaller storage area versus the Mazda. You do get one USB in there and along with a 12-volt power outlet. I do find the Toyota seats to be also equally comfortable. They don't feel as upscale as the Mazda seats, but they do surprisingly have more bolstering. I personally would rather be in this car on a longer trip just to be in the seats because the seats feel a little bit better accustomed to my body type. So I always tell people try the seats out for yourselves, see if you like them. The glove box, as you can see, is damped but not lined with felt. It's more of a bin style. And the overall fit and finish in here definitely isn't as nice as the Mazda. The Mazda feels like a class above. There's even some ill-fitting panels here in the Corolla Cross, which is a little disappointing to see. The horn sounds very puny and pathetic, so that's where Mazda definitely has a much better sounding horn, which is nice. And then you can see the mirror is also an auto-dimming frameless design. You have also a cheap cardboard material for the headliner, along with the sunroof that has a traditional shade that opens and closes. Again, no panel roof on either of these models. But in general, the Corolla's tech and just the visibility and the seat comfort are probably winners for me, even though I'm not the biggest fan of the dash design of the Corolla Cross. It protrudes too much into the passenger area. That makes this and it makes the cabin feel a little bit more tight than it actually is. But let's go ahead and hop into the back seat of the Corolla Cross and compare it to the Mazda, because shockingly, the Toyota only offers 32 inches of legroom back here, which is around 4 inches less on paper than the Mazda. But you'll notice immediately that the Mazda and the Corolla, I'll just open the door really quick to show you. There's the Mazda's door opening versus the Corolla's door opening. The Mazda has a much smaller opening, as you can clearly see, and the space for this car just appears to be a lot more welcoming. You have the same mixed media, soft text, black leather material here with the blue stitching. The door panel materials are hard touch plastic back here, which is a downgrade from the front, which is the same thing as the Mazda. You can see it's padded over here. There's a built-in cup holder here, and these seats do fold down, but they do not recline. Neither car offers a completely flat floor when you fold down both of these seats. Now, getting back here, as you can see, the legroom space is just much better versus the Mazda back here. Even though there's less legroom, it feels like more knee space here and just a more open and airy feel. I can more comfortably cross my legs here, even though, again, 32 inches isn't a lot. I am noticing that this area here feels a little bit more tight. The floor is also not as raised up for the middle passenger here as it was in the Mazda. You do have rear seat air vents here, and the Corolla Cross gives you 2 USB-C charging ports down here for the backseat area, which is nice. The Toyota also only gives you 1 storage cubby. You saw there's an armrest here that folds down, gives you 2 cup holders, nice size head restraints. And then in terms of the headroom space, the Corolla offers probably double the headroom space as the Mazda. So if you plan to use this vehicle as a family car, this car is definitely going to offer you more real world space. But remember, there are competitors in the segment like the Honda HR-V, for example, or the Crosstrek that do offer even more rear seat space. So here we are behind the wheel of the Corolla Cross. Obviously, the Mazda has the sexier looks and the turbo engine, but let's go ahead and see what the Corolla can do 0 to 60 wise. We've got it in its sport mode here. We'll go ahead and brake torque it. Spins the front tires, which is not expected for a vehicle that's a hybrid. All right, we got 7.4 seconds there. 7.4 is pretty respectable. Now, I should notate, if you guys watch my full review on just the Corolla Cross, the quickest time we actually got was 6.9. That stretch right there is slightly uphill, but I'll do the same 0 to 60 test in the Mazda when we switch into that and see what the Mazda actually gets. I expect the Mazda to be faster, but I also don't expect it to be that much faster considering the fact that it has a lot more horsepower and also a lot of torque. We don't know the torque figure of the Corolla Cross. Now, in terms of the driving dynamics, the Corolla Cross feels definitely on the softer end. Even though this is the XSE trim, it feels very softly sprung. The steering is basically dead. It's quick enough response, but I don't have any feedback coming to the steering wheel for what the front tires are doing. The ride quality in this car, however, is comfortable. We've got a fully independent suspension here, unlike the Mazda, which has a torsion beam semi-independent at the rear. So this car soaks up the bumps quite nicely, and it has that comfortable ride despite the fact that it has, the Sport Tune suspension. This is the XSE trim, sportier, but it doesn't sacrifice the ride comfort. The seats are also cushy. This is a synthetic leather material, just like in the Mazda, but they hold me in place nicely. They feel comfortable in terms of padding. I could drive this car on a longer trip, and these seats would be fine. What starts to tire me out, however, is the noisiness of this car. When I put my foot down, the engine just screams and it buzzes, courtesy of that eCVT. There's also lots of road noise and wind noise coming in as well, which isn't very pleasant, especially on those longer trips. But I love the fact that, you come to a stop, for example, this hybrid powertrain is very refined. Toyota got the hybrid part right here, and that's where a lot of people are going to appreciate the extra efficiency, the instantaneous pull. I mean, if you're not pushing the engine too hard, the electric power will power this vehicle on electricity alone, and it feels good. It feels strong. It has lots of instant power from right off the bat. And it's going to make driving this vehicle around town very pleasant, especially if you guys, drive around in the city a lot, where it's going to use that pure electric power. Now, I got an opportunity here to do another 0 to 60. This time it's on more level surface, so we'll see if we can get a quicker time here. Brake torque, still spinning the tires, which is hilarious, but buzz, buzz, buzz. 6.95 there. So just to prove to you guys that this car can do a sub 7-second run, there it is on a completely flat surface with the brake torquing it. It certainly helps. Brake torquing actually shaves off 0.2 seconds off the 0 to 60 time, which is not bad. Even though this car doesn't have launch control, that's how you get the best time for acceleration. Now, let's take the vehicle out of its sport mode there. We'll just put it into normal and just drive the vehicle normally. The visibility is good out of this car. It's better than the Mazda. I can see out of the front and the side and the rear easily. This car comes standard with their Toyota Safety Sense 2.5, so it includes adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, automatic emergency braking, traffic jam assist, all that stuff. It even will brake for you if I'm not, even if I don't have the system on, if it sees a car in front of me. So it's kind of nice how it does that. And then, of course, the technology in this car, this is much better than the Mazda. Love the 10.2 or 10.5 inch display. It's bigger, it's much closer to you, where it's actually a touchscreen. The software behind it, also the screen quality and resolution, looks phenomenal. So this was an update that Toyota gave the car this year, and it's not the biggest screen in the class. Technically, the Kia Seltos, I believe, or the Hyundai Kona offers a 12.3 inch display, but this is still very usable. It also could use a volume knob. That's where Mazda gives you a volume knob, but you can also just use the control here on the steering wheel to increase the volume or decrease the volume. But the software behind this is just so much better. So I think Toyota definitely has the infotainment system down. They have a little bit more storage here as well in the center console area. And in terms of fuel efficiency, this is where the Corolla Cross simply blows away the Mazda. I was averaging 45 miles to the gallon in mixed driving, mostly city though. On the highway, it dropped down to around 36. I also got around 370-ish miles of range on a full tank, which could be better, but the fuel tank in this car is pretty small at only 10.6 gallons. Technically, it's much better range than the Mazda, and the fuel efficiency of this car is easily 20 miles to the gallon better. 20 miles to the gallon better, so keep that in mind, even though the Mazda is likely going to be the faster car. But in general, driving the Corolla Cross is an easy affair. It's comfortable, it's fuel efficient, it's quick enough for most people, visibility is good. You just have to deal with the noisier cabin and the slightly crampeder feel for the cabin, but still it has a more open and airy feel than the Mazda. But let's go ahead and hop into that vehicle so you guys can compare what the acceleration and the overall experience is like. Now, having just hopped out of the Corolla Cross Hybrid into the CX-30, on paper, this car should dominate the Corolla Cross in terms of acceleration. Let's go ahead and test that. We've got the car in its sport mode here for the transmission. We'll go ahead and brake torque it. This is the first stretch of road we were in the Corolla as well. It's so fast that my phone actually fell out of the wireless charging pad. But wow, we got 0 to 60 in 6.32 seconds there, compared to the Corolla Cross, which also did that run on that same stretch. It did it in 7.4. This is over a second faster 0 to 60. So yeah, if you guys are looking for speed, you're gonna want the CX-30 Turbo. This has the most power that you're gonna find in the segment, and it also has a really smooth 6-speed auto that is down a couple gears compared to more modern transmissions, but it's still a nice transmission, especially when we just hopped out of the Corolla with its buzzy, whiny, drone that you get from its ECVT and 4-cylinder. This just sounds good. It's a synthesized sound that Mazda is augmenting a little bit, but the car in general, if Toyota tries to be sporty with the Corolla Cross XSE trim, it's not sporty. This is sporty. The steering in this car is alive. It's quick, it's responsive. I can actually feel what the front tires are doing. It tells me through communication from the the front tires to the steering wheel, which is nice. The suspension in this car also feels noticeably stiffer than the Corollas. There's less body roll. The car in general just feels like it wants you to push it harder. On your favorite back roads, the Corolla Cross kind of bemoans. It's just like, oh, do you have to drive this fast? I can, but you don't really want to. And the Mazda, it feels playful. I feel like I'm driving a taller hot hatch, which for the enthusiast in me, I really appreciate that. The downside, of course, is the ride in the Mazda is noticeably firmer. There's a lot more bumps and just imperfections that come through, which makes the car feel a little bit more unrefined, but at the same time, there's a little bit of torque steer there when I really put my foot down in the corners. But hey, this car just puts a smile on my face. I really appreciate just the added fun that you get with this car. That's something that you just didn't get in the Corolla, but at the same time, the Mazda is still pretty comfortable. The seats are pretty cushy. The padding in this car is good. I like the suede Alcantara in this car versus the Corolla. I actually think the seats in this car feel more expensive, but the Corolla's padding is a little bit softer in that regard. Let's try another run here, 0 to 60 wise. This time we won't brake torque it though. Or actually, maybe I will. Oh, seriously. 6.09 seconds. So the Corolla on that stretch there did it in 6.9. So just remember, you're going to be getting to 60 a second faster in the Mazda, which makes a pretty big difference. This car on paper is faster, and in the real world, it feels significantly faster, which is something the enthusiast in me really appreciates. I think Mazda very much has the enthusiast driver in mind when they were designing this car, but also remember, most people probably won't get the turbo version of this car. You're going to get the naturally aspirated 4-cylinder, which is going to be noticeably slower, but hey, if you can pony up the extra cash for this powertrain, I would do so. It's definitely very, very nice. Now, in terms of visibility, the Corolla is better in that regard. The Mazda's windows are smaller, so you kind of have to see around them and through them. I just have a more ease of driving ability in the Corolla versus this car. It's not bad, it's just you have to get used to the sight lines in this car a little bit more. In terms of the efficiency, that's where the Corolla also blows this car away. In my weeks worth of testing, I was only getting around 24 miles to the gallon in the Mazda, and in mostly city driving. On the highway, it did get closer to 30, around 29 mpg. That's where the Corolla Cross on the highway was only around 6 mpg better. However, in the city, because the Corolla is a hybrid, that will do around 20, a whopping 20 mpg better than this car. That makes a huge difference. The Corolla did around 370 miles of range on a full tank. This car did around 280, so around 90 miles less in real world range. That's because the Corolla has such a small fuel tank. So keep that in mind. You're paying a pretty hefty penalty to get the extra speed that this car gives you. But hey, if you want that extra speed, I mean, 6.1 seconds or 6.4 seconds, 6.3 seconds is crazy fast for this car. But at the same time, is that what people really want in this segment? I think the Corolla still offers plenty of acceleration, but a much better, fuel efficiency. But at the same time, I don't love the buzziness. The Corolla was noticeably noisier. It had way more road noise, way more engine noise, more wind noise. This car feels like I'm driving around in a more premium type vehicle. You just have to sacrifice the ride comfort a little bit because of that, stiffer suspension tuning and the torsion beam rear suspension. I mean, in general, though, both cars have their very unique driving characteristics. The enthusiast in me, however, much prefers the driving feel of the CX-30 to the Corolla. So after spending a full week with both the Toyota Corolla Cross Hybrid and the Mazda CX-30 Turbo, it's pretty clear to me that both of these vehicles are a viable alternative to the bogey in the segment, which, as you guys know, I've said it a few times, it's the Subaru Crosstrek followed by the Honda HR-V, because the Subaru sold nearly 200,000 units last year, while Honda did around 150,000 HR-Vs. The third best-selling model was the Ford Bronco Sport at around 135,000 units. But obviously we're here to talk about the Mazda and the Corolla Cross, and both of these vehicles also did pretty well in terms of sales. Toyota sold just under 100,000 units. It basically was number 5, I believe, in the sales race, while Mazda in 2024 sold around 94,000 units. However, sadly, last year in 2025, they only managed to move around 56,000 units. So I suspect a lot of the Mazda people were probably going to a CX-5 or CX-50. This car is also due for a redesign. But I have to say the Mazda is definitely the one to get if you're a driving enthusiast, because as you guys saw, this vehicle has the stats and feel that would be more akin to a hot hatch vehicle. 0 to 60 in just over 6 seconds makes this the quickest accelerating and most powerful vehicle in the segment. It literally smokes everything in class, including the Corolla Cross Hybrid, which this vehicle is certainly no slouch, doing 0 to 60 in 6.9 seconds. I'd say that the second off the 0 to 60 time is worth it to me to get nearly twice the MPG. So for me, that win kind of goes to the Corolla Cross, even though the enthusiast in me would rather drive this vehicle. In terms of refinement, this is where the Mazda does win because it's a quieter vehicle. It's not as noisy. It has less road noise. It just feels more sophisticated, and the interior also feels like a step above. This feels like it's a more premium car as opposed to the Corolla Cross, which is a more utilitarian car. I also don't like how the Corolla has tons of road noise, tons of engine noise, a lot more wind noise than I expected. It just feels like Toyota took out a lot of the sound deadening in this car to get it to that lighter weight, which, by the way, this car is shockingly 100 pounds lighter than this car, and I think it's all because Toyota barely put any sound deadening materials. In terms of comfort, the Corolla does win here because it's a more comfortable ride. It's got more comfortable seats, but at the same time, the noisiness of the cabin would wear me down on a longer trip, whereas the Mazda's ride quality is definitely firm. It's not what I would say a deal breaker for most people, but it's definitely firm, especially when you drive the two vehicles back to back. In terms of practicality, the Corolla wins here as well, with its more spacious back seat in the real world and also its larger cargo space. The Mazda is not bad, but just remember, you're making a compromise for that sexier styling and design language, which in terms of looks, I would happily say that the Mazda is the more sophisticated and premium look. I wouldn't be embarrassed to show up to, I guess, a nice dinner reservation with this car versus this car. It kind of is a vehicle that you just kind of lose care of what you look like when you're driving a car. That's kind of the design element that Toyota is going here with the Corolla Cross. Now, in terms of availability and pricing, this is where the Mazda is a little bit more expensive than the Corolla, especially at the base end. Now, this car starts at around $25,900 for the base version. The Corolla Cross starts $1,000 less at $24,900. However, if you want the hybrid Corolla Cross, it'll cost you at least $28,000. If you want the turbo Mazda, it'll cost you at least $33,000. So it's a pretty big jump to go to the turbo on the Mazda. And in that regard, the Corolla Cross Hybrid is the cheaper vehicle, although Mazda doesn't technically offer a base version of the turbocharged engine. You have to go for this Air edition, which, as tested here with the upcharge for the paint and of course the destination, this car here stickers for just over $37,000, which in contrast, the Corolla Cross also starts at $33,000 for this XSE trim. Add in the features like the convenience package, the JBL sound, the two-tone paint, and the destination charge, along with some accessories. This car here is around $37,400. So basically, they're within $200 of each other in terms of the as-tested price. And if I had to choose a winner here, it's kind of hard to say, because if you value fuel efficiency, you don't care about sportier handling dynamics or a sportier look on the outside, you're going to want this vehicle, especially when you look at the fuel economy benefits. 45 mpg is what I got in real world testing, which is basically the best in the segment. Even the Crosstrek Hybrid doesn't get as good a gas mileage as this. That's rated at 36, which I'm hoping I can get a Crosstrek Hybrid for a full week at some point to test. Now, the Mazda, on the other hand, is the one for driving enthusiasts. It's the car, if you like driving, if you don't mind the fact that it's going to get worse gas mileage, it has a stiffer ride, a much smaller and less practical interior, because this car definitely, even though it's getting old, feels like a car that could basically sit next to some luxury players like a BMW, an Audi, or a Lexus, or an Acura, for example. But at the same time, I guess if I'm looking in this particular segment of vehicle, even though the enthusiast in me wants to pick this car, I would probably end up choosing the Corolla Cross because you just can't beat the, nearly twice the MPG efficiency of this car while also still having relatively quick acceleration, only losing a second in terms of the 0 to 60. At the same time as well, the Corolla seems to offer a much more practical driving experience and practicality as well. And I think that for those reasons alone, it's going to make this car the easier choice between the Mazda, although Mazda really should be working on a new CX-30, and once they give us that with a hybrid powertrain, I very much could sway my decision here. But in general though, if I had to pick one of them, I would go with the Corolla Cross. But if you don't have a thing against Subaru, I still personally think the Crosstrek is probably the most well-rounded option. But with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my very detailed comparison test between both the Mazda CX-30 and the Toyota Corolla Cross Hybrid. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.